we're going to be going through the deltoid muscles, which consists of 3 separate muscles, anterior, middle, and posterior deltoid. Treatment A procedure is going to be prone position, and we're going to focus on the posterior deltoid. Okay, I prefer to sit down when I'm doing this. Now, I can just get in a comfortable position here. With my offhand here, which is my right, I'm going to support under his bicep right at the elbow joint. Okay. We're going to heat the tissue up. I'm just, again, working on the posterior deltoid in this position. I'm going to heat the tissue up. Right through posterior deltoid. Okay, and then I'm going to start my contact right at the deltoid tuberosity. Slightly above it, there's a bursa that sits there, and it doesn't like to be compressed, so we're going to just work right above it. Now, if you look at the anatomy of the shoulder, it makes up the bulk of the shoulder here, and it forms this triangle that comes to a point here. So anterior, middle, posterior all come to this deltoid tuberosity. So all of the passes are going to start right here, but again, be careful of the bursa. Okay, offhand's going to support. I'm going to start right at deltoid tuberosity, just above, pressure above. Okay, and I'm just going to thumb strip through the fibers of the deltoid, posterior deltoid, I should say. Okay. Okay, so heat and just thumb strip. I'm going to have Joe do this. Joe, heat up the tissue first. So Joe's checking the heat. It's important that you guys get really habituated with checking the heat first. Don't touch anybody with that sleeve prior to feeling it on your hand. And obviously, if it's too hot, you just can swipe some of the heat away. Okay, notice he's moving from his wrist to his elbow, so he's covering the entire surface of the heat sleeve. Great. Just following fibers of the posterior deltoid up to its origin. He's going to fan his strokes out so it's covering all of the fibers of the posterior delt. Make sure your tissue's warm. Keep heating that tissue up. And notice how he's starting at the point and fanning out posteriorly. That's great. We just covered the posterior delt with him in a prone position. He's now supine, which opens up the middle and the anterior for us a little bit easier to get to in this position. Okay, I'm gonna sit. Now I'm gonna cradle his arm here. I've got his triceps, and then I'm just letting his hand rest right here, so we're nice and comfortable, okay? Before I do that, let me just check my heat, and I will actually heat him up in this position. It'll just be a little bit easier. So I'm going to start with the anterior, okay, starting from the point where it attaches on up. Then I'm going to take him here, cradle him and do exactly what we just did, starting at deltoid 2, and then just thumb stripping up to the origin of the anterior delt. And again, we're just going to fan our strokes here so we're covering everything, and then from there we can go into middle delt. So same idea, same principles we did with posterior deltoid. And Joe, you don't have to delineate between anterior and medial unless there's an actual problem. You can just fan through the whole thing. Okay. Now when we look at the deltoids, they make up the bulk of the shoulder, but we don't see a lot of chronic injuries and problems with them as much as the rotator cuff in the shoulder creates the problems. The deltoids are abductors, and they can run into problems, strains, sprains, usually through some kind of trauma.
So I'm actually going to hover because I feel more comfortable
right
here.
So Joe prefers to be up hovering, that's great either way.
So I'm going to find that deltoid tuberosity. And I'm just going to fan slightly anterior.
That's great. Notice his speed, really nice and slow. Very specific over the anterior fibers. And a nice, slow, deep pace. We talk about this, the deeper you go, the slower you have to move. When you guys are going to be hearing that out of us over and over again, it's really important. If you're doing really deep tissue work and you're moving really quickly, it becomes very uncomfortable for the person on the table and they can't seem to relax into it. But Joe's pace is absolutely perfect. Then from there he can fan into the middle delt and it all sort of blends together. Nice. Great. Okay, that's anterior middle of the deltoids.